Let's hope the wheel is nice to us this week. I am not quite sure how I feel about this book right now, you guys. You're joking, right? Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. We're gonna do a little bit of a fun reading challenge-ish kind of this week. Essentially, you guys know that I have been determined to read down my physical TBR, and I know I've been doing kind of episodes of TBR takedown, but I thought we would do another one this week with a little bit of a twist, with a little bit of a challenge element added, because I feel like that is just so much fun. Who doesn't love a good reading challenge? This week, I am essentially going to let a TBR wheel decide what I read. So I actually have no idea what I'm going to be reading this week. I don't know if the wheel will be nice to me today or if it won't, if it will pick seasonally appropriate reads or not. I don't know. We are leaving the entire decision to this TBR wheel that I have here. So essentially I have loaded every single book that I own on my physical TBR onto this wheel. As you can see, it is completely overstuffed. Like, you can't even see the book titles because it is so oversaturated, but I'm just gonna spin this wheel, and whatever book the wheel lands on is the book I'm going to pick up next. Let's hope the wheel is nice to us this week. But okay, let's just go for it. Let's do our first spin. All right, I'm gonna have to use my thumb to spin it if I can reach. There we go. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna get? I'm nervous. Why am I so scared? Kiss of Deception. You know what? I did not expect this. I did not see this coming, but I feel like this is actually a good time to pick this up because I did actually recently finish 2 series. That was the Stormlight Archive and the Infernal Devices series. So at this point in time, I feel like I am allowed to pick up a new series and start a new one. So I guess first read of this week is going to be, where is it? Wait, where is it? I know I have it. Why can't I find this book? Oh, it's right here. I'm going to read The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. So I know that this is a YA fantasy. It is the start to a trilogy that is connected to the Dance of Thieves duology, and I actually read the Dance of Thieves duology first, which apparently is the wrong order to do it, but oops, I didn't know. So I've already read that other duology, and this trilogy is set in the same world. In terms of story, I'll give you a proper plot synopsis once I get into it, but what I do know is there is some sort of a love triangle in this book. I think we follow a princess, and she tries to actually run away. I think she just like doesn't want to deal with the pressures of her life or something, and she ends up in a village, and at that village she meets 2 handsome, mysterious strangers. One of them is an assassin, I think, who has been sent to find her, and the other man is the prince that she was supposed to marry. Sounds like a great fun YA time, so I'm excited to dive into this one. Let's start a new series. So I ended up reading about 75 pages of this last night. It's definitely fun so far. It's definitely an easy read so far. It feels very much like a 2010s YA fantasy, which I have been loving lately with the Infernal Devices trilogy that I just finished reading. I feel like it's just a vibe sometimes. I think I mentioned several months ago that it's always fun as a reader just to have one YA fantasy series on the go. It just reminds you of those books that made you fall in love with reading in the first place. And so I'm definitely getting those vibes with this. Also, now that I know a little bit more about the actual story, our main character is Leah. She is a princess, and at the beginning she has been forced into this politically arranged marriage that she doesn't want a part of. You know, she's never met this prince that she's engaged to. She's like, why can't I just at least look at him first to make sure I'm not marrying an absolute toad? So instead of going through with this marriage, she runs away, and because she runs away, she now has an assassin that has been sent after her, and also a prince that she has left at the altar, essentially. She and one of her ladies' maids, they're also kind of best friends. They have run away together, and they have arrived at this really charming fishing village that honestly sounds like a really wonderful place to be. They think they have fully gotten away with it when one day 2 mysterious strangers turn up, kind of together, but also kind of not together. Leah doesn't know this, but one of those strangers strangers is the assassin that was sent to go after her, and the other stranger is the prince that she was supposed to marry. But these strangers are both actually, you know, on top of being mysterious, they're also both very handsome. And so that just sounds like the perfect setup for a love triangle, if you ask me, a classic 2010s love triangle. I think so far, just comparing this to Dance of Thieves, which is also set in the same universe, I do see how this was now set before Dance of Thieves, because we are getting more gradual world building and explanation of just kind of the kingdoms and politically how everything is set up. It's definitely an easier, more gentle transition into this world versus Dance of Thieves, where you kind of just got terminology thrown at you and not explained. I think that was my biggest thing about going into Dance of Thieves in the first place, is that I don't think the story overall was hard to understand necessarily, but it was more just like various terms, whether it was names of mythical beings, creatures, or lore, you know, the history of the world. We just didn't get a lot of that explained in that duology, and I feel like we are actually getting things explained in this in very just gradual, digestible little bits. So it makes sense that this is the actual introduction into this world. In terms of the writing so far, again, very easy to read, very quick to go through. It's YA. It's just, it feels very silly at points, but in a fun way, you know what I mean? Our character Leah and her friend are very much, they're very young, you know, and they feel young. They're kind of in the world, out in the world for the first time. They have this innocence. They're very naive. They get giggly about thinking about flirting with boys and having your first kiss and everything. And it's just very fun and light to read. So far, obviously, there are kind of more serious kind of political things happening behind the scenes. And, you know, there's definitely some action that's going to happen with the idea of this assassin that's been sent to go after her, even though it feels like the assassin might end up falling in love with her. It also feels like maybe the beginnings of a love triangle where you don't necessarily know who she's gonna end up with. Like, it's not very obvious, and I think those are the love triangles that I have the most fun with, when the end game couple isn't overly obvious and you kind of go through the story wondering who she's finally gonna end up with in the end. Just a lot of fun so far, so thank you to the TBR wheel for picking this up for me. I'm just gonna continue reading this and see how it goes, but so far, it's fun. Quite sure how I feel about this book right now, you guys. So I am just about to hit page 300 in this book, so I am over halfway through. I don't know. I'm really mixed right now. On one hand, this book it's just so easy to read. It is kind of like a brain off type of a book because it's written just so simply. The plot is also not very complex. The world is also pretty simple, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of books that I do enjoy that are quite simple, like they're just kind of for fun, for the vibes kind of thing. And I was having those, you know, just for fun feelings at the beginning of this book and in the setup and even in the introductions of this love triangle happening. I was like, okay, you know what? I just read the Infernal Devices trilogy and I kind of loved that nostalgic YA feeling, silly little love triangle kind of a thing. But after reading more into this book, I'm not getting the same vibes. I think one of the main things that I'm getting a little bit frustrated at is that the romance, honestly, I'm so sorry. I know there are so many of you guys who love this series. This love triangle is really feeling like, I don't know, we're just teenagers and we're fighting with each other and playing games with each other just to get the girl. And I feel like maybe if I read this 15 years ago, I would have eaten it up. I would have devoured it and absolutely loved it. But in this stage in life, I'm just like, I don't really have time for this. I think the difference is in the Infernal Devices, the love triangle, I don't know, it was a little bit more subtle. Obviously, it was a main part of the plot, but the romance kind of happened more in private moments between the characters, and it didn't turn into this kind of schoolyard squabble with one another, and I'm just not feeling the schoolyard squabble. I'm so sorry. I don't understand really the intentions of our characters because, I mean, the setup of this was so fun, but I just feel like the plot is going nowhere. And all of our characters are just kind of stagnant and like hanging out for a month just to flirt, and I don't understand why everyone is still here. I'm kind of at this point just like, let's move the plot. Let's move the plot forward. Let's, I don't know, deal with the things we need to do. I'm sure the assassin, you know, the assassin has been tasked with something. I'm sure he needs to like assassinate and then move on to the next one. And then same with the prince. I'm sure he has some princely duties that he needs to get to. I just don't understand why everyone is just hanging out here in this little fishing village. I mean, I understand why Leah is, but I don't understand why the boys are. Like they, did she really reel them in immediately, instantly, that hard to the point where they just drop their entire lives to flirt and fight over her? I don't know. I don't really understand it. I kind of at this point just want the fantasy part of the plot to move on because I'm really not feeling the love triangle. I also feel like a lot of it was quite insta-lovey. I was kind of feeling a little bit awkward because, I mean, there's not actual like spice in this book. It is very YA, very closed door. But from the beginning, from our interactions with our two boys and Leah, they were very quickly doing these intimate things like grabbing her chin, or not grabbing, but like touching her chin and then lifting her chin up so, you know, they would make eye contact, or holding hands, or like putting a hand on their shoulder or their chest or something. Like there was just a lot of really intimate touching right away, right off the bat. And at that point in the story, I was like, wait, you just met like today. Why are we already lifting each other's chins up? That seems like something you would do with a loved one or a friend or a family member or someone you just feel physically comfortable with. So that happened real quick. So yeah, I don't know. I think the fantasy story in this could be interesting. I kind of want to dive just more into that, and hopefully the back end of this book focuses more on the fantasy plot over the romance, because I'm not feeling the romance. And you know what? Maybe it is because I just came off reading the Infernal Devices trilogy, and that is like one of the best YA love triangles that I've probably ever read in my life. And just reading another YA love triangle that's just not on the same level, it might just be unfair to this book that I'm reading it so close after the Clockwork series. I don't know. Hopefully the back half convinces me on this one, but those are my thoughts so far. Can you guys hear my dishwasher through this mic? I don't know. I hope not. If you do, I'm sorry, my dishwasher is running. But I thought I'd update you because I'm in the last like 30 to 40-ish pages of The Kiss of Deception, and I feel like this has happened before, but kind of all my criticisms of the first 2/3 of this book kind of disappeared in the third act, and things finally got exciting. The plot started moving forward, the fantasy plot plus the story plus just I feel like development of our characters as well. Everything just finally got going after page 300. And so I can happily say I am having fun with this book at this point. We're just, yeah, finally finding purpose in all of our characters. We're also starting to finally dive back into the lore, the history of the world, and we're finding things out and discovering why things are the way they are with our kingdoms, with our main character. And it's definitely less of like a schoolyard crush squabble between three characters now. I feel like the elements of that YA romance are still here, but because there is action and plot happening, it doesn't feel as silly anymore. Like there are actual stakes attached now, and there is cause for tension, and so everything is just finally more exciting at this point in the book. Anyways, let's finish this book. My dishwasher is still in fact running, so I'm sorry again if you can hear it, but I did finish the last little bit of The Kiss of Deception. I think I'm gonna rate this a 3.25. I think it was fine. I think it was fine. I do really enjoy Mary E. Pearson's writing style. I like the way she describes things. It's all very easy to read, but still has its own little mood going on. She does have a very good balance of descriptive and lyrical writing, but not having it feel too poetic where it gets in the way. I think the setup at the end of this book is fun, and because of that, I do have better hopes with the second book, hoping that one will just hit a little bit harder. But I think, yeah, overall, while the last little bit was definitely a lot more fun than the first 2/3 of the book to read, I just don't think I'm fully connected to these characters yet. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with that first bit of the book when we were initially meeting them, and I was just like not really liking the characters because I was just feeling annoyed and bored at them. I do hope they continue to grow as the series goes on. And I will say there were some fun little narrative decisions made by Mary E. Pearson in terms of chapter POVs and how those were just kind of cleverly chosen, very cleverly done in terms of what information to give you and what information to withhold from you. So it's a 3.25. I do think and hope this is a series that just kind of gets better as it goes on. I do find that with a lot of YA fantasy series in this sort of subgenre, that does happen for me, where the first book can feel just a little bit too silly, a little bit too predictable, a little bit just too simple. But you just, as you read on to the second book and the third book, I do find that that is where the strength of a lot of these YA fantasy types of books are for me. So that's it for Kiss of Deception. Okay, let's get the TBR wheel to choose what I'm gonna pick up next. All right, let's see what this is gonna give me. Why am I scared? What does it say? You're joking, right? Wait, do I just do it? I mean, I kind of have to do it. I have to listen to the wheel, right? That's so funny. I try to not repeat books in the same series in like the same reading vlog, because I feel like sometimes that's just boring to watch, just seeing me read one series. I feel like that just doesn't really give you that much variety to make an entertaining reading vlog, you know what I mean? But I mean, the wheel chose for me, so I technically have to do it. All right, I'm gonna grab it. Is this just the wheel calling me out for reading series too slow and just being like, Jamie, why don't you just read series back to back? So the wheel wanted me to read book 2 in the Remnant Chronicles. This is literally book 2 to The Kiss of Deception. And who am I to challenge the wheel on what it chose for me? So I guess we are going to continue the story with Leah and our 2 boys and see if this book is better than the first book. So we'll all have our answers sooner rather than later. Okay. Thank you, wheel. Guys, today is not a fun day to be a person who has spring allergies. My nose is so runny today, but eyeballs not that itchy today, which is actually a good thing, because I feel with spring allergies, the eyes are what usually bugs me the most. I know everyone gets them a little bit differently, but some days I will literally wake up and not be able to open my eyes. Like one eye will be halfway shut because of the pollen in the air. Anyways, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Heart of Betrayal, book 2 of the Remnant Chronicles. I have now read about 100 pages of this. I will say this is miles better than the first book. The writing style does still feel very similar. That's definitely one thing I have observed with Mary E. Pearson, is that her writing is just kind of solid throughout. It's more of the storytelling bits that sometimes I have issues with, as you did see while we were just reading The Kiss of Deception, but this one, miles better so far. The silly little love triangle, still there, but now it's being done in a fun way where I can actually have fun with it and appreciate it, because now the love triangle is directly tied into the fantasy politics that are happening. There's actual purpose. I keep saying the word purpose, but it's just true. It's like now there are real tensions, now there are real stakes, now there is a real purpose of why we have these 2 guys and they're truly like on opposite sides, and it's all just more meaningful this way. Like, yes, is some of the stuff a little bit petty and a little bit whatever? Yeah, but that's also kind of, you know, a given with the love triangle trope, is you're gonna get some of these moments and they can be made fun to read. They just have to actually actually mean something. So that's great. The story is already right off the bat more interesting because we are starting in this very problematic situation that our characters need to get out of, and we're learning about a whole other side of the world and, you know, just classic fantasy stuff, which is great. But I'm gonna continue reading this one. I think I'm just gonna do like almost a full day reading sprint today because I do have the time, which is wonderful. But so far so good. I am now seeing the fun that is the Remnant Chronicles. So yay. I guess I'm glad the wheel forced me to read this right after The Kiss of Deception, or else I might have put it off for a very long time. So, The Heart of Betrayal was most definitely an improvement from The Kiss of Deception. I did enjoy this one a lot more. This story in particular was mostly about navigating court politics, kind of discovering how politics works, how this world works. We learned more about history. It almost felt like a classic second book where we have our protagonist just opening her eyes to a whole new side of the world. And I do usually love the kind of, like court politics, trying to out-scheme, outwit the other person. And while in this book that sort of happened on a smaller scale, I still enjoyed it. It was fun. I do like reading that type of a story. I think this world is also really fun. I mean, I did know a little bit about it because I have already read Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves, but it's just a fun world to be in. It's not overly magical, but there is a hint of magic in it, and it just, I don't know, feels magical because there is a lot of lore and myth that is specifically built into this world, and I think that just adds a fun little flair to it. I just think even like now that I'm at the end of this book, I've read what, like close to 1,000 pages in this world with these characters now, there's just something still missing with the personal connection for me. I don't really feel that emotionally connected to Leah. I don't really feel connected to her two boys. I do feel a little bit something for this kind of found family that she has, but I do think found family is one of the easiest elements to implement in a YA fantasy like this. Almost every book I've read in this subgenre has an element of found family, and I just think it's just the easiest way to reach into my heart because I don't know, I do love a good friendship, and I do love reading about friends caring for one another, and I feel like a found family is easier to do without it feeling overboard or too cheesy because it's just something that is so wholesome and can kind of just subtly happen in the background, where things like romance can be so brought up to the forefront and just get like pushed into your face that if it's not done completely to your taste, you really see the holes in a romance, where a found family, just happens in the background and there's a lot less to criticize about a found family. But I'm just, in terms of the love and the romance, I'm at this point still not really rooting for either guy. I don't really care for either of them. I think in this book we definitely learned more about their backstories, and so in that way we have a little bit more depth with them, but I don't know, I just feel like maybe it was because of the way we met them in the first book and spent those 300 pages just flirting for no reason. My brain just shut them out. I'm like, nope, there's nothing they could do at this point that could convince me to love them. Like, I'll be fine with them, I could even like them, but I don't know if I could be convinced to love them. I'll try and keep my mind open. Maybe the third book will convince me on at least one of them. I mean, at this point, it does seem quite obvious who is the love interest and who is just like the third point in the triangle. But I don't know. I just don't feel emotionally connected to anyone, really. I think this series for me is fun. It's entertaining, it's easy to read, but I'm not entirely sure if these characters will stick with me because they just haven't like dug deep into my heart to really make an impact on me long term. So this might honestly just be a series that I read for fun. I'll probably forget about all these characters in like a year, but this one was a fun way to pass the time. But this book was definitely an improvement over the first book. I think I'm gonna rate it a 3.5 because I gave the first one a 3.25, right? Yeah. I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5. Hopefully the third one will jump to a 4-star. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's so weird because I do love Mary E. Pearson's writing, and I love how she incorporates these like made up fantasy myths and storytelling and, you know, all that into her stories. But there's just something about these characters that are not clicking for me. Anyways, while we're here, let's pick our third and final read for this reading wheel vlog challenge thing. Wouldn't it be so funny if the wheel picked, what is the third book in the series called? The Beauty of Darkness? Wouldn't it be so funny if the wheel chose that for me and this reading vlog just became a whole Kiss of Deception reading vlog? Honestly, I hope that doesn't happen just because after reading these two fantasies, I am craving something a little bit more real world next. So let's see what we get. All right, give me something good, please. What is it? Oh, okay. We're gonna read Upgrade by Blake Crouch next. This, I think, honestly, is a good little compromise between a real world book and a fantasy book because this book is set in the real world, but obviously with just more advanced technology that adds a little bit of a fantastical element to it, if you can call it that. I did just talk about this book in my 5-star predictions video that I just posted, so I definitely have high hopes for this one. I'm excited to read it, but essentially in this version of our world, in this book, there is technology where you can kind of hack your brain to become smarter, more alert, you can multitask better. It seems to me kind of like the Limitless pill, but more like instead of just a pill, it's actually hacking your brain. And so our protagonist Logan has gone through this upgrade. He's got a certain like quest or task to do with it or something. I don't know. I'll give you a better synopsis once I actually dive into this one, but I think the concept of upgrading yourself using technology is definitely really interesting, always something that is cool to dive into, and honestly really relevant to like, you know, technological advances and developments in our actual world. I did love recursion, you guys know that, so I hope I love this one too. So that's gonna be our third read. Oh my god, oh my god. Blake Crouch has this way of just making me feel so uncomfortable and claustrophobic in his books, but in the most incredible, visceral way that you would want to feel when you're reading a book like this. So while I was reading Recursion, I just felt like the weight of everything was coming down upon us all. And I'm kind of feeling similar with Upgrade already, and I'm only like 60 pages in. But this time, instead of being crushed by kind of external forces, I'm feeling like I'm being crushed from within, and it's making me feel so uncomfortable. And when I say crushed, I don't mean physically crushed, I mean kind of, but more of like a mental feeling of just, yeah, feeling claustrophobic within your own body. Oh, this is a very compelling read so far. And I've only managed to read 60 pages, not because this book is slow or bad or I'm not into it. I just didn't really have the time yesterday to read very much, but I am very much liking this so far. So for a better little plot synopsis, essentially in this world, technology has advanced. So people can edit genes, people can create viruses, people can genetically modify all sorts of things to the point where it has become widespread enough that it's become a real problem of things getting out of hand. So while in theory, you know, if this technology is just put in the right hands and people are using it for the greater good, curing diseases, kind of doing minimal upgrades on yourself, stuff like that to make you smarter or whatever, obviously things like that just don't stay in control in the world, and with kind of humans being greedy and bad and everything, so it spiraled out of control. There are different instances of, you know, maybe some well-meaning people have made mistakes and it's led to big disasters that has then been led to like death of many people. And then there are other people who of course abuse this technology and use it for nefarious purposes specifically. So because of all of this, gene editing and all of that is now illegal, and there's a new police task force works called the GPA, the Gene Protection Agency, and they just work to enforce the law, keep things in control, make sure no one is dabbling in genes anymore, but obviously people are still dabbling in genes, and our main character Logan works on this task force. At the very beginning of the story, he does get into an accident while on the job, and he basically gets hacked and his body starts changing, but he doesn't know what he's been infected with. And this is the part that makes me feel so uncomfortable because, oh my goodness, just the way Blake Crouch has written this virus attacking him from within, and seeing Logan's just reaction to it and being like, no one knows what this is. Like, the doctors don't know what it is. It could be a delayed release. Like, even if he seems okay now, things might happen later and there's nothing he can really do. Like, the virus has taken his genetics, his DNA inside his body, and they are actively taking over his system, and he has no control over it. Yeah, that makes me feel so uncomfortable. It is funny kind of comparing this to Recursion, like the only other Blake Crouch book I've read. I'm just kind of getting the vibe that Blake Crouch likes exploring when technology gets out of hand, and he likes seeing a main protagonist who is either like a detective or a police or someone who's just trying to stop it from happening or to try and just like get to the bottom of it. That's definitely a similarity that I'm seeing between the two books. I don't know what his other books are really about, but yeah, first 60 pages of this, so good so far. I'm already feeling so concerned for Logan. I feel like just when something so dramatic like that happens immediately at the beginning of the story, you can't help but feel concerned and attached to him because it's like your body has been literally taken over. I might honestly even like the start of this book better than Recursion, and the start of Recursion was so strong, but I think what was missing in the end, what made Recursion a 4.5 for me and not a 5-star, was number one, there was a random romance that came out of nowhere and I didn't like it. And the second reason was because like you don't really get character work, and you don't really need it for Recursion because the plot is compelling enough and the idea and the concepts of everything is compelling enough to keep you going through the story. But there was little to no character work in Recursion, but I think already in here I'm getting some more emotional depth out of Logan right off the bat. We're meeting his family, we're seeing the people he cares for, we're seeing how he's been dealing with some trauma from the past and how that's affecting his decisions today. And so I think immediately there is already some more character work being done here. So I'm just curious to see where everything goes from here. Can you tell I'm excited about this book? I'm just like, oh my god. Anyways, yeah, I've only read 60 pages so far, so I'm just gonna continue reading this. So far, this is like it's really attached onto my brain. Like, this book is hacking my system right now. So I'm gonna keep reading. Later. I'm still sitting here on the floor. My back hurts a little bit, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, but this book was addictive and I couldn't stop reading it. So now that I'm actually finished Upgrade, let's go over my thoughts. Overall, I did enjoy this read. I think in the end though, Recursion was still better for me. It definitely had a similar mystery thriller but with sci-fi technology kind of a vibe. So in that way, it definitely felt like a Blake Crouch book. But in this one, we had this kind of fun, honestly, element of solving puzzles almost, decoding encrypted messages and stuff like that, and I feel like the nerd in me really loved those parts. And what I also loved about this book is that while we were also going on this quest to save humanity and trying to track down certain information and things, we also did dive a little bit, just a little bit, into how something like this, an upgrade on your body, can also affect you emotionally, and you can't just think of like the physical strengths that you gain or even the mental technical strengths that you gain. It is going to affect your emotions as well, and you just can't help that. That is a big part of what it is to be a human, and I think, yeah, just questioning humanity and all that was definitely a present theme throughout this, which I think is honestly kind of a mandatory theme that should be and usually is in all sci-fi books. So overall, I did like kind of the big picture plot trajectory of this, and obviously, you know, as I mentioned, it was very addicting. I couldn't look away. What I will say though is what makes this book not perfect for me is our main character Logan, he became way too overpowered. And I mean, it kind of came with the nature of the story and how it launches with him being upgraded, with having this superior DNA that is literally kind of like the limitless pill. But I think I would have preferred seeing him struggle a little bit, you know, like with all stories, it's not as rewarding if you don't see your protagonist struggle. And I think like that's why I enjoyed the beginning of this book so much, seeing him go through this kind of hack on his system and struggle through that. But honestly, I think after the 70-page, 80-page mark, he was kind of just really overpowered and things kept happening just too easily, too conveniently. He didn't really have to work hard to find information or track someone down, or, you know, when he got into fights, he a lot of the time had the upper hand. And I honestly think the story would have been more interesting if his DNA upgrades also came with like side effects. I think that would have added more tension, more stakes, just more danger to this book. By the end of this book, I think the overall climax, like kind of the intense point of this book, wasn't as how can I describe this, overstimulating as what the recursion final climax was like. Like with the recursion final climax moment, I was like, I felt the weight of the world on me. I thought I was getting like squished in one of those, what are they, like the pressure squeezer things? I don't even know what I'm trying to describe, but I felt like the pressure from the climax in recursion, and with this I didn't really feel that nervous. I didn't really feel that stressed. It didn't impact me that much. But what I will say is the epilogue of this book is really what sealed it and kind of packaged it nicely in the end, because it did bring us back to kind of what we were supposed to actually take away from the story with the themes and everything. So I think it all wrapped up nicely in the end, but it just, yeah, we didn't get that like bone crushing type of excitement at the climax of this book. I think all that to say, I'm hovering between a 3.75 and a 4-star for this book. The idea was great. Most of the execution was great. There were just a few little things that I think could have been improved or upgraded to have made it just like better or perfect. So somewhere in that range. That being said though, that concludes our week of reading what the TBR wheel chooses. Definitely an interesting read. I honestly don't think this group of books with 2 of the Remnant Chronicles books and then Upgrade, I don't think I would have just picked these ones up myself at this point in time. So it was definitely fun. It was definitely something different, just letting something else that is completely randomized choose what you read next. It does add a little bit of excitement to this TBR takedown project that I am in the middle of. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I feel like our reading choices were a little bit random, but I had no control over that. So I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know if you'd like to see another TBR wheel video, or if there are any other kind of randomized reading vlog methods that you would like to see me try. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!